All right, let's dive into some serious language stuff today. We're talking about speaking English fluently, something I know you're really working on.
Definitely a hot topic.
You bet. And you sent over 3 sources,
Uh-huh.
2 blog articles from Preply and Busuu,
Yeah.
and then one from EFU blog, all about how to, well, not just speak English, but really own it,
Yeah.
like way beyond the basics.
It's a pretty popular goal, yeah.
Yeah.
And those sources, they've got some interesting angles.
They do. Okay, first thing that jumped out at me, all 3 basically scream, practice, practice, practice. Makes sense, right?
You've got to use it or lose it.
But they go deeper than that. It's not just practice, it's how you practice.
Right, the methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Preply talks about these language exchange apps. Have you ever used those?
I have, yeah, a few.
I haven't actually. But it sounds cool. Like you find someone who wants to learn your language and you kind of swap.
Exactly. And you can practice speaking and listening with a real person.
Way more fun than just drills, I bet. Preply also mentions just narrating your day in English, like to yourself.
Yeah, just thinking out loud.
It sounds a bit weird, but I kind of get it.
It can help internalize the language.
Meanwhile, Busu's over here with the more traditional stuff, classes, tutors, that kind of thing.
The structured approach.
Yep. But then EF Joe blog, they're all about making English part of your life, not just study time.
Immersion.
Totally. So, switching your phone settings to English, listening to English music, stuff like that.
Oh, and keeping a journal in English. That's a good one.
Building that English bubble all around you. That's what they call it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good analogy.
But hold on, before we go too far, I gotta mention this 2 sigma problem thing. It's from Preply, and it blew my mind.
The tutoring study, right?
Yes. They're saying that one-on-one tutoring can, double how fast you learn.
It's a pretty significant impact.
If someone told me I could be fluent in half the time, I'd be like, sign me up.
It's definitely compelling evidence, especially when you consider the personalized attention.
Right. You got someone focused on your needs, your mistakes, and, keeping you accountable.
Like a personal language coach,
Yeah.
pushing you toward your goals.
It reminds me of this friend I have, actually. He was battling with Spanish forever, right? Then, boom, he gets a tutor, and it's like a switch flipped. Suddenly, he's practically fluent.
That's amazing. It shows how powerful that focused attention can be.
And the cool thing is, with sites like Preply, tutoring's not this crazy expensive thing anymore.
Yeah, way more accessible now.
Okay, so back to the whole immersion thing. All 3 sources are big on this, right? And they get pretty creative with the ideas.
Yeah, it's not just about textbooks.
Definitely not. So we talked about phone settings, music, what else? Oh, podcasts.
Huge for language learning.
I'm addicted. It's like learning without even trying.
Right. And there are so many amazing podcasts out there on literally any topic you can imagine.
True. You can boost your listening, your vocabulary, even how you pronounce things, just by listening.
Absolutely. But as great as podcasts and apps are, we got to remember that technology is a tool, not the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah. LanguageMastery.com makes that point really clear.
Right. You need a balanced approach.
Like a balanced diet. They actually use that analogy.
And that's a great way to put it.
Speaking of which, YouTube is basically a buffet for English learners.
Oh, absolutely. A goldmine. And the best part is you can really customize it to what you need.
So much variety. Like you could be a total beginner and find something perfect. Or super advanced, same thing.
Exactly. There are channels for everything.
And Preply has this cool suggestion. They're all about taking a placement test first. Figure out exactly where you're at before you dive into anything.
Smart move.
That way you're not totally overwhelmed or bored because it's too easy. You're in that sweet spot where you're challenged just enough.
It's about working smarter, not harder. And that actually connects to something else all these sources talk about, stepping outside your comfort zone.
They love that, huh? Embracing the challenges.
It's crucial for growth.
Which makes sense, but it can be intimidating.
Of course, putting yourself out there knowing you might mess up.
Exactly. I remember I was in this French class, right? Totally sweating it, trying to make a simple sentence.
Oh, I feel it.
It was all the grammar rules, all the vocab words I'd crammed in just vanished. I knew the stuff, but couldn't make it work.
Classic language learning block. You have the ingredients, but no recipe.
Exactly. But then I found this trick Preply talks about, thinking in phrases instead of words.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's like having these pre-made building blocks you can just grab and use. No more translating every single word in your head.
Way more efficient. And it ties into what EF Jugo blog calls sentence mining.
Oh, right. Collecting whole sentences, phrases, whatever that you actually use in real life.
Exactly. So you're not just learning words in isolation, you're learning them in context.
Which makes way more sense. And there's all this free stuff online for that, like lists of common phrases for different situations. It's like having a cheat sheet for life.
Preply uses tonight as an example. They say, don't just learn the word tonight, learn it as part of tonight I'm going to.
Tonight, I'm going to order pizza and binge watch Netflix.
Exactly. Makes it way more practical.
Okay, gotta shift gears a sec. Idioms.
Oh, yeah.
I love idioms. They're like the spice of language. EF Jubal blog has this one. To have a frog in your throat.
Meaning you have a scratchy voice or you're losing your voice.
Yeah, but so much more colorful than just saying that.
It's about sounding more natural, more like a native speaker.
And EF Joe blog says idioms show you really get the culture, how people actually use the language.
It goes beyond just knowing the vocabulary and grammar.
They even say focus on idioms that fit your life.
Yeah.
So business idioms if you work in an office, nature idioms if you're outdoorsy.
Right. Tailor it to your needs. And Preply actually has lists of idioms for different themes.
No way. I gotta check that out. Food idioms would be fun.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of food, I once made a huge mistake with an idiom. I was in Italy. And, well, let's just say I accidentally told the restaurant owner his wife was delicious.
Oh no, you meant the food.
Yeah. Luckily, he thought it was hilarious. We both had a good laugh. But those kinds of blunders, they happen.
All the time. And all our sources are like, don't sweat it.
It's part of the process.
Busu compares it to how kids learn languages. They're not afraid to experiment, even if they sound goofy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They play with the language,
Yeah.
they make mistakes, and that's how they learn.
No fear. And Ollie Richards, he's this language guru, EF Jogo blog quotes. He talks about tolerance for ambiguity.
Being okay with not knowing everything perfectly.
Because let's be real, language learning gets messy.
Totally. There are going to be bumps in the road.
So true. Okay, gotta mention pronunciation. This can be a big scary thing for people, right?
Absolutely. It's like you're training your mouth to do things it's never done before.
Preply even says some sounds can feel physically impossible, like your tongue's not cooperating.
And it's not just about how it sounds, it's also about how it feels. Preply mentions Spanish speakers getting jaw ache from speaking English for too long.
Really? Wow.
Because they're using different muscles, basically. Language learning is a workout.
Who knew? Okay, last thing for now, vocabulary. Everyone wants more words, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's like building your language toolbox.
But the cool thing is none of the sources are just like, go memorize a dictionary.
No, they're more about finding ways to naturally pick up new words.
Through conversations, books, shows, you know.
Exactly. Making it part of your life, not a chore. And by the way, have you heard of spaced repetition?
Is that like repeating yourself over and over until you go crazy?
Not quite. It's a technique where you review new vocabulary at specific intervals. It helps you remember things better.
So you're not just cramming, you're actually learning it long term.
Right. And there are tons of apps and flashcards that use spaced repetition. Super helpful.
Speaking of helpful stuff, I'm trying to remember. Did our listener mention any specific interests?
They did, yeah. They said they were really into listeners' stated interests.
Oh, right. Well, if they're into that, they'd probably love specific resource recommendation.
Oh, that's a good one. I've heard great things about it.
And it's known for being really reason why it's appealing to the listener.
Perfect.
And if they want something more interactive, maybe they could try another specific recommendation.
Yeah, that's a good shout. It's really popular with people who are into reason why it's relevant to the listener.
So many options. But I think the big takeaway here is that fluency isn't some finish line you cross. It's a whole journey.
With lots of twists and turns along the way.
Totally. And yeah, practice is key, but you got to find what works for you, you know? Don't be afraid to mess up. And honestly, just have fun with it.
That's so important.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap this up. I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. That feeling of like...
You mean that fear of sounding dumb?
Yeah.
Or making a mistake and like everyone laughing at you?
Yeah, like you freeze up and can't even say anything because you're so worried about messing up.
I've been there. It's the worst.
Yeah.
Especially when you're first starting out.
Totally. It's like stage fright, but for speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if, instead of being afraid of those moments, we kind of flip the script?
Flip the script.
Yeah, like instead of dreading making mistakes, we see them as, I don't know, like opportunities.
To learn, you mean?
Yeah, to learn. And also to laugh at ourselves a little.
Oh, I like that. Turning those blunders into funny stories.
Exactly. It takes the pressure off. Makes the whole thing more fun.
Because fluency isn't about being perfect, right? It's about being able to actually talk to people.
Connect with them. Share your ideas.
And sometimes, Honestly, those messy moments, the ones where you totally flub it, those can make the best memories.
Oh, for sure. They're the ones you remember.
Like I was in Italy once and I wanted to buy a bottle of wine, but I totally botched the Italian and ended up asking the guy if I could buy his wife.
Oh, no.
We both ended up cracking up and it totally broke the ice. We had this great conversation after that.
See, those language mishaps, they can lead to good things.
Totally. They remind you that it's a human process. We all make mistakes.
Exactly. It's part of the fun.
Okay, so big takeaways from today. If you want to speak English fluently, get out there and use it. Don't wait till you're perfect.
Right. Dive in.
Surround yourself with the language. Find resources you actually enjoy.
And don't be afraid to mess up.
Embrace the mess. Now, before we go, I got to share one last thought. Something to kind of chew on. It's not just about speaking English fluently. It's about thinking in English.
Ooh, I like that.
It's like that's when it really clicks, you know, when you stop translating in your head and just think in that language.
It becomes part of you.
Totally. It's a journey, but so worth it.
Absolutely.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you some good stuff to think about, maybe some new ideas to try out.
And remember, you got this.
You totally do. And hey, if you want to explore more, we've got links to all the resources we mentioned in the episode notes, so check those out. Happy learning.